First, always.
Hi, everyone. Hello. I'm Matteo.
Hi, everyone. I'm Luca.
Hey. Welcome to JSNation, and we are so happy to be here.
After 6 years
After
together.
6 years in the same location, whatever. Different conference, different time. It's fantastic. Before we get started, for the sake of brevity, we have only 20 minutes. We have abbreviated a few steps of the story. So if it's not perfect, it's not correct, please let us know, but it's fine, okay? So I wanted to start everything by telling that technology is actually a spiral. And every generation of technology, implementation changes all the time. A few years back, we were coding in COBOL. Now we are coding in TypeScript, or Zig, or Rust, or whatever, really. But most of the time, foundational ideas do not. They actually, came back and came back and came back. MVC was invented by Smalltalk a few years back, right?
Like COBOL also.
COBOL, yeah. Well, we were talking about COBOL, and the biggest, our good friend, the Monolith. How many of you love coding a very nice monolith for your app? Yay!
Don't be shy, don't be shy.
Don't be shy. Okay, it's fun. The Monolith. And look, once upon a time, in the world of APIs, there was Java. And this is JSNation, it's a JavaScript conference. Not the coffee bean or the island. I don't know, did you know?
But you know that in Amsterdam we have Java Island, it's just over there. But that's not where they created Java, by the way.
Okay.
Thank you. Everything started with coding applications, right, in Java. And we all know how it started with your beautiful IDE. You press the magic build or pray button, and you create a Word file. Yeah, at the end of the day, it's just a tarball. And then you SSH copy, or you just drag and drop if you're on Windows, and put it in your application server, right? That's how everything started. And Java is a phenomenal technology that changed massively the way we look at enterprise applications, but it's a little bit slow, mechanical. It requires a lot of maintenance, but it can take you from A to B, no problem. We already all have been there, right? And Java started building the world of APIs, but at the time, they were called web services. And we all have been through the beautiful phase of having your WSDL file.
Oh, but how many of you coded a WSDL in your lifetime? Many graybeards are here. Okay, a few. Yeah, it's called the WS star. And I don't know, when we were at uni, we mocked this and called it Death Star. So that's why there is the Death Star behind. Okay, sorry. I didn't explain this because people told me that was not clear.
And we all built also then later in Node, the SOAP parsing. Because everything was XML, right? And on the UI side, the equation was a little bit different. Everything was built server-side and server-side render, and we used Tomcat. The model that we implemented was a model that was very monolithic, like Matteo said, because we had a single unit of deployment, but it was multi-threaded and synchronous.
So when I was, a few years back, I was starting my PhD, and I took a look at this fantastic thesis. There was the thesis of Roy Fielding, which was one of the pioneers of what we call the web. He theorized this little thing called the representational state transfer, or AKA REST. It's great, okay? Also, about that time, this was year 2000, about that time, 2001 and so on, we started to see another nice invention in the world, JSON. How many of you use JSON today? Oh, you're not raising it, I don't see enough hands up. Okay, you're using XML at the bottom of the state. I know you're using XML.
The diehard.
The diehard. So, but back in 2004, we had another great invention in the world of web, which was Ruby on Rails. I don't know how many of you were stunned by when Rails came out and it was able, I can actually build a website or a fantastic thing in 20 minutes. It was stunning, okay? And we did fantastic HTML templates with ERB and another nice technology called Prototype.js, which was a blast. And Scriptaculous, whatever. I don't know how many of you were there at this time, but it's great tech. And that, the developer experience of building APIs and websites was all about the data. So you started generating your migration for your database, then these things were generated automatically, and more or less you get a nice scaffolding of HTML, your controller, ERB files, and all a nice CRUD REST API. All of these was I don't know, one command away. Where did we lose the ability to generate a full website with a nice API for it in one command? I don't know how much time it takes you to do that today, but it's totally not what REST does. So, however, Ruby on Rails had a little bit, especially my experience, was a fantastic tech for moving very fast from A to B, and actually slow from B to C. Okay, you wanted to reach C, but you go on the Rails, super high speed. Then, you need to break off the Rails a little bit. Then you started going a little bit slower.
You need to derail.
Yeah, a little bit. So, and at the time, we also got the best developer experience ever for deploying stuff. And again, stunned. Before that, it was super hard. Then Rocon came out, and you could actually git push to a repo, and you could deploy your stuff. How many of you git push to deploy today? Okay, you should thank these guys. And you could deploy to any env, to be honest, but it's amazing. It was amazing developer experience, and probably still the best that you can get. Everybody wanted to copy this. At the core of this stuff, and while before with Java and those things, we were doing these big application servers, now the cloud started doing the uplift of running our services, and we started to have these nice servers proxy in place, and these nice proc files to define what to see. A lot of you don't know that, but don't worry. And we have multiple processes for each machine running all the stuff. It's very simple architecture, but actually very effective. Still, we will be doing synchronous programming. What does it mean? When it receives a request, it processes that request before doing the next one. So, however, this is the JSNation Conference, right? And any application that can be written in JavaScript will eventually be written in JavaScript. So thank you, Jeff. And this was essentially the time where Node came to be. And 2009, Node.js started changing the way we build stuff for the web. When I saw the first Node.js demo, I thought, no, this is the next tech for the next 2 decades at least, and I jumped on that bandwagon, even though I knew nothing about JavaScript. I'm a backend engineer by trade. I knew nothing about JavaScript and C++. That's a different story. Continuing our metaphor of transportation mechanism, Node.js is like a little SUV that you can move from A to C, all terrain. You don't go super fast. You can use Node to actually do very custom things and move fast while you're doing it. There are, I don't know, millions of modules on NPM now. A lot of vulnerabilities probably, but that's a different topic. And we were told at that time that because Node.js had this massive event loop, we can be single-threaded and run many requests per second in parallel on a given process. Wow. I don't know, it's super fantastic, right? And so,
Bam! We broke the monolith.
Yeah.
Finally, the monolith was broken in pieces, and we are all familiar with the concept of divide and conquer, right? We all went through that beautiful loop. And that was the time that we started revolutionizing the world of backend, breaking the monolith, or the single application, into microservices. And this journey took us basically to encounter technologies like Docker and more recently the service mesh, right? I think you're all familiar with both concepts. And those both concepts, actually, they kind of led to a false promise. that it works on my machine, and I think you're all familiar with the meme, right? It works on my machine, then we will ship your machine, right? Because let's be honest, Docker doesn't work on your machine and on the cloud the same way, just, right? It's a great marketing exercise, but this promise actually started to trigger many more thoughts and ideas on how this space could be evolved. In the meanwhile, the front end was changing. And you all know where I'm going to, right? We started decoupling. So now you have the front end and the business logic. The single page application started to grow. Mobile grew massively. And so this journey took us from having this monolithic application to a distributed system, but most likely to the transformation to REST APIs. And most of the time, what happened in reality is that you just render what is in your database from the server side. And in this journey, clearly, we are all familiar with probably the biggest revolution and player that Vercel and Next put in place, because they actually brought that experience that was lost in this journey of the backend to the front end. They say, we can just have one git push, deploy your application, and you can go from 0 to production in no time. But what about the backend developers? I was a backend developer, Matteo is a backend developer, we all have been there, and we said, where the hell did it go, this journey, this experience? And so, we were all in the midst of being transformed into a distributed system. And as a distributed system engineer, and as many of you, I know exactly that a distributed system is extremely complicated because coordination is a huge challenge. Do you agree with that? Coordination is everything, right? And so we saw the journey being taken from the operator side. So we saw tools like a service mesh. I can put a sidecar in your application and give you all the functionalities, like, for example, distributed tracing, because it's pretty miserable when you have 100 microservices and somebody calls you at 2 a.m. in the night and says something is broken and you need to go and dig into 100 microservices. Deployments, and we saw the rise and fall of registries. All operator tools, but where are the developers? Where are the enablers of that? Because they're still missing a tool to allow developers to build, manage, and scale microservices painless. And how can we actually bring this joy back to API development?
Yeah, well, you know, at some point last year, we decided that we were going to fund a company. So enter Platformatic. And look, we are helping developers getting rid of all the undifferentiating, the heavy lifting of building Node.js application. And what we want to reach is the same speed of that I experienced a few years back when I first tried Target Rails, with the flexibility of Node.js at the same time. So this is not working anymore for some reason. OK.
We don't produce batteries. That's why probably lost the battery.
Yeah, sorry, it went through. OK, good. Nice, OK. Sorry about it. OK, so a little bit of Misha. And sorry, why this is not, can you, OK. Sorry, you keep, it's exploded. OK, good. So it's all open source, and And it stands on the shoulder of giants. It's built on top of a framework called Fastify. So I don't know, check it out. I wrote the thing a few years back. And another thing called Node. So also, it's composed of a few things. And the first one is Platformatic service. Basically, it bundles all the things you need to build APIs today. Open API, GraphQL support, REST, but it also had custom metrics, logs. It protects you from event loop, mishaps, which is very nice, and it has TypeScript and Arch module reloading support, as well as health checks. We also built a thing called Platformatic DB, which is fantastic to build APIs really, really fast. And because you just create your migration, and after you have created your migration, you could get it done and create your APIs. You also, It supports multiple databases and so on and so forth. It's actually very easy to use, and you should give it a shot. Now, all of these is for building monoliths, right? You have built one thing and a service or a Platformatic DB. Those are just monoliths. Can you flip this slide? And now we are introducing something new. We are introducing the composer. So you want to, we were asking a lot of devs, and all of them told us, well, we really like REST. And we started saying, oh, OK, but how can we combine multiple REST services very easily? Well, the composer allows you to combine multiple APIs built on REST and OpenAPI and expose them as a single one endpoint, more or less getting rid of the backend front-end pattern. It also handles a lot of nice things that makes this kind of stuff very nasty to do, and we just take here and do it for you. So no problem. It just works out of the box. We are also shipping a new technology called Platformatic Runtime. And it's not correct. It's whatever. It's not correct. OK. So anyway, the Platformatic Runtime is a new technology that enables you to run multiple front-end multiple applications within the same Node.js runtime. It's part of the new Platformatic cloud, and it creates things. It enables you to run all of them together. More on that later.
A déjà vu.
A déjà vu.
And because we know that managing distributed system can be very painful, we actually decided to kind of take a different direction than a service mesh. And we said we can actually create a system, a graph on top of all this set of microservices, and basically create a generative taxonomy system that allows to kind of do multiple and interesting things. For example, dependency conflict resolution, or basically have topological sort order of services. And they're all things that more or less we actually been through building distributed system and microservices. And so when I said that it's a déjà vu, it feels that we are taking a step back, right? We started this whole conversation with Java and the deployment to an application server. And it feels that we are going to where Matteo was leading us in the beginning, to a circle. And we actually noticed in this journey that actually there was an opportunity to evolve what was standardized and more kind of like the status quo for building Node.js microservices. But we wanted to do it in a modern manner, in a modern architecture. And so it's not streaming to the, so.
OK.
And so we actually decided to transform microservices into nano services. And this is actually thanks to what Matteo was just saying about the runtime. We are actually able to put together a multitude of services and deploy them as a single unit inside of the runtime, and then ship the runtime straight into any machine. And this runtime, thanks to the taxonomy and all the other things that we just saw, is actually creating a virtual mesh between code systems, right? So it's a overlay, but it's not an overlay with a sidecar.
So one of the key features of the Platformatic runtime is that the services are not automatically accessible over the internet. We are essentially interconnecting them automatically by using a few technologies that we have developed across the years. And it's also compatible with the standard fetch APIs. So you could just fetch, and instead of going for a full route of HTTP, everything is actually routed within the same process, kind of on a virtual mesh on the same process itself. It's actually pretty cool. So it's great, right? And what we want to say, Luca?
That finally it runs on my machine, your machine, our cloud, or your cloud. So finally we can get it running everywhere.
So, today we are actually launching our cloud, and you could deploy all of this stuff on on platformatic.cloud, and from 0 for free if you want just basic stuff, or if you need, to a domain name or some other stuff like that. For $99 is dollar, not euros. So if you care about those things.
And the things that we actually thought was more fair for developers was actually to charge what it really matters. That is the compute power. So we kind of took a look back on successful stories, like where Matteo took us with Heroku, and said these developers should be enabled to collaborate and work together on building those applications, and we should only actually charge per unit of compute.
Oh, but didn't we say that everything that I talked about is just open source? Well,
we have a surprise.
We are going to do a release on stage. So. Happy? Yeah. Here we go. So, are you ready?
Ready?
Yeah, I am.
Shall we do it?
Shall we do it? So.
Let's open it.
Let's open it. Are you ready, Luca?
Go, press it.
So, cool. It's all available now. Check us out at platformatic.dev. It's been released as we speak. The GitHub Actions are doing its job.
So give it the time to GitHub not to crash and to deploy our stuff, because we really deployed it right now.
Totally live stuff, so could have failed big time. So we'll see. Ultimate live coding, doing a release of, I don't know, a year of work on stage.
With a nuclear launch
of course,
briefcase.
Cool.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
And don't forget to look and check our website.